I'm breaking down 11 resume mistakes that can quietly block you from senior roles that pay over $125K. If you've been applying and not hearing back, one of these is likely the reason. If you are concerned about the bots or the applicant tracking system, stick around for mistake number 4. All right, so let's get right into it. First common mistake for leaders who are writing their resume is burying their leadership achievements. Most leaders describe the responsibilities that they had, and they often bury the actual wins that an employer wants to know about. A hiring manager already knows what a manager, a director, a VP does. They want evidence of the scale of the work that you've done and the outcomes that you've been able to deliver. So lead every role that you communicate with scope and impact so that they can instantly see your level, the size of the teams that you've led, budgets that you've managed, your portfolio, the geography, and actual business results. So instead of saying something like manage the team, you would replace that with achieve 10 million annual revenue growth across 3 regions, leading and coordinating a 25-person global team to deliver strategic projects and market expansion initiatives. Ooh, what a difference already, right? It communicates the actual impact of what you did. If you don't have revenue or budget numbers, quantify your influence. So you would say something like own roadmap for 7 products used by 1.2 million customers, reducing incident volume by 28%, and saving support teams 1,000 hours annually. So what you will notice is that I'm quantifying. I'm showing the magnitude of what I was able to achieve. So put the proof up front so that your leadership lands in the first few seconds when someone takes a look at your resume. And I use a simple framework to write resume bullets. This is the framework that I use when I'm working with my clients, and it is results/impact plus scope and scale, followed by a comma, and then we state the action and the task. So in the example of the first resume accomplishment statement that I made, results and impact was achieve 10 million annual revenue growth. Then the scale and the scope was across 3 regions, followed by a comma. Then the actual action was by leading and coordinating. And then the task that you did was a 25-person global team to deliver strategic projects and market expansion initiatives. When you write your resume bullets in this way, you lead with results, and you also ensure that every single bullet on the resume speaks to the impact that you've made and the scope of your work. The next mistake is a weak executive summary or a weak summary of qualifications. So the top of your resume, you want to think of it as prime real estate, and vague goals or statements or objective statements like I'm seeking opportunities as a whatever, those are a waste of valuable space. So the summary that goes at the top of your resume, its job is to state who you are, the problems you solve, and the outcomes that you drive. You want to keep it to 3 to 4 tight, concise lines, and if you're changing careers, bridge the gap directly in your executive summary about where you are and where it is that you are going. So an alternative to the summary of qualifications is that you have just 4 or 5 bullets that highlight your career accomplishments, like the example that you see here. You can also do both, where you have the short summary followed by the career highlights bullets, as in this example. Either of these options work. You just have to ensure that the top of your resume signals what kind of role you are applying for, what kind of impact that you've made, and why you can solve the problem that the company currently has. The third mistake is using over-designed templates. Very often, pretty isn't persuasive if no one can read it. Many applicant tracking system tools can't read through some graphics, some text boxes, images, and icons. So when parsing fails, your resume will never actually get to a person. So choosing a clean template, single column, standard fonts, clear headings, enough white space, and consistent bullets, that's the best way to ensure that your resume is readable. So that means don't create your resume in Canva, and make sure that your name and the section title are text not an actual image. And test it. Upload your resume in a free parser. There's so many available online. Copy all the text into the blank document, and if it comes out jumbled, that means you have a design issue and you need to clean it up. If you are old school and you want a quick way to know how to ensure your resume is actually readable, save the document as a TXT file instead of a doc or a PDF, and you will see that whatever you get there is exactly what the applicant tracking system will be able to read on your resume. The next thing is trying to beat the bots. There are so many strategies that people are sharing online in terms of how to make sure your resume gets through the applicant tracking system, from white fonting to keyword stuffing, pasting the entire job description into your resume. Remember that a person is going to read the resume. So the right approach is to focus on strategic relevance. Take out the 8 to 12 core keywords and key phrases that you're seeing in the job poster, and be strategic about incorporating those into your resume. And the most important thing that you want to keep in mind is that you don't just want to add a bunch of keywords in the resume. Within your experience, you need to provide the context of how you acquired that experience and the impact that it made for the company. Mistake number 5, you uploaded your resume as an image. JPEG, PNG is often not readable by most applicant tracking systems. So use a PDF. That's the best way to conserve and preserve the formatting. Unless the employer asks for a Word document, then send a Word document. Make sure that the title, the name of the actual document is professional. So let's say Lisa Appia, resume, director, operations. And make sure that the links, LinkedIn profile, email address are clickable in the PDF. And I have another video where I show you the right way to link your LinkedIn profile or your email to your resume to avoid any of these challenges or any of these mistakes that often happen, and I'll link it right above. Mistake number 6 is forcing everything into one page. The one-page resume rule is for people who are early in their careers, recent graduates, not for someone who has many years of experience. I had a client who approached me and she was saying she's not getting any jobs, nobody's reaching out to her, and she thought she had to abide by the one-page resume rule. So what did she do? She cut like 75% of her work experience, and the resume barely spoke to what she could do. It barely spoke to her capabilities, and the resume didn't show the best of her. We changed the resume to a standard 2-page resume, and she did eventually land an interview and role. So 2-page resumes are the standard for senior roles. If you're C-suite, consider even a 3-page resume if it's necessary. The rule is relevance, not length. So lead with the last 15 or so years of aligned experience that align with the target role that you're applying for. Keep older experience brief. You can also add a section called additional professional experience for older experience that you do want to showcase on your resume that may have relevance to your target. In our career coaching program, our clients receive step-by-step guidance on how to write their resume, and they can also opt to have us professionals write the resume for them, which a lot of leaders prefer. And in addition to that, we can also do up to 200 job applications for you using AI. Our goal is to make the job search as simple as possible and not another job. So to learn more about our coaching services, you can click the link in the description. Mistake number 7 is listing your entire career history. Now, here's the opposite of the problem that I just talked about with the one-page resume. I often see people with many years of experience who sometimes feel that they have to say it all. It's important that you remember that your resume is a marketing document. It is not a diary or the story of your life. Including every job that you've had since the 90s really just dilutes your story. So you really have to prioritize roles that prove you can do the job that you want next. Anything that happened in the 1900s, like my son would say, leave it out of your resume. If an older role is uniquely relevant, as I mentioned earlier on, you can create a unique section called earlier experience or additional work experience, and note just the title, the company, and one single outcome that really is relevant to your goal. If it's not relevant and it's that old, just cut it out. Showing focus and showing the ability to be concise is a skill that is required as a leader, and that really shows that you're aiming for senior positions. Listing everything reads as you're unfocused, so you really need to be concise in the way that you present your story and your experience. Mistake number 8 is writing in the passive voice. So passive phrasing sounds something like responsible for managing a team. It often sounds more like a job description than a resume, and it doesn't focus on outcomes. You want to make sure that you start every bullet with a strong action verb and that you're communicating impact. And I gave you some examples of this at the very beginning of the video. If you're in a place where you can't share, let's say, a dollar amount, or you can't quantify, think of time saved, defects reduced, cycle time cut, risk avoided. These are all ways in which you can demonstrate the impact of your work. And I shared with you the framework that I use with my clients when I shared point number 1. What I will add is that you want to start your resume bullets with a strong action verb. Your resume should not read as managed, led. There are so many words out there, and you can use a simple AI prompt. Please give me an alternative action verb to the word manage, and it'll give you a bunch of other words that you can use instead of creating a resume that sounds very repetitive. This is a related mistake, but your resume has no metrics or results. At the senior level, results matter way more than responsibilities, and every function has measurable impact. Quantifying it really shows your scale and your influence. At this level in your career, metrics really show and signal enterprise-wide value, how you influence strategy, your leadership effectiveness, and the impact that you've had on markets. So consider accomplishments that demonstrate these things. And I'm going to give you a few more examples of things you can think about, because this is an area that a lot of people get stuck. And often when my clients are coming to me to help them with their resume, it's because they're telling me, I can't remember my accomplishments. I don't remember what I did. I don't know how to articulate this. So I'm trying to give you more examples to actually jog your memory, to think about different accomplishments that you've had in your career. So revenue growth is one area. You expanded top line growth through new markets, products, or clients. Cost optimization. You streamlined operations. You renegotiated contracts. You reduced overhead, or you maintained quality. Operational excellence. You implemented systems that scaled efficiency, or you mitigated risk. Strategic problem solving. You guided your team through complex changes or challenges or transformations. You can have accomplishments related to market competitiveness. You strengthened the company's positioning. You improved the brand credibility, or your service delivery brought an advantage to the company. You can talk about relationship building or executive relationship building, where you built a coalition with a board. You brought together the C-suite. You ensured that people had consensus in their decision making. You ensured that key stakeholders were able to come together to advance strategy. Other resume accomplishments to think about is how you brought sustainable growth. You expanded operations, you diversified funding, or you unlocked new growth opportunities. And obviously, as a leader, it's always important to think about accomplishments related to talent, culture, leadership. So you increase retention, you built high-performing teams, you advance the company's mandate relating to team morale. These are all ways that you can demonstrate your accomplishments on your resume. Mistake number 10 is too much jargon. So there are buzzwords that are very common in corporate that end up on people's resumes, whether it's guru, synergy, thought leader, that sometimes don't really show your value. And then also this jargon often doesn't align with the job poster, so it doesn't help you when you're trying to include the appropriate keywords in your resume. Also, if you're a company or you've worked with an organization that uses a lot of acronyms and you're trying to find a role in a different company that uses different acronyms, you want to make sure that you're communicating effectively on your resume and your resume is not full of acronyms, which I have seen way too many times. So you want to make sure that your resume is understandable by anyone. The person who's often seeing your resume first, the recruiter who works in HR, the talent acquisition person, they do not have the inside scoop or the subject matter expertise into your field into the work that you do. So you want to make sure that your resume communicates that you're the right fit for the role so they can pass that resume along to the hiring manager. So avoid all these acronyms and the jargon. And you can take a look at the link in the description. Book a consultation with me if you want us to professionally write your resume for you. We would be more than happy to do so, and you can book a consultation and we can discuss further. Mistake number 11, not tailoring your resume for roles. So a generic resume signals low intent. Tailoring doesn't mean you're rewriting everything. It means you're aligning what you want to emphasize. You're mirroring the language that the company is using to ensure that there is a right match and a right fit. And it shouldn't take you a lot of time. It takes, we create a master resume for our clients, and then we provide them with insight into what they should be tailoring. And this shouldn't take more than 10 to 15 minutes. And really what you're tailoring is the job title at the top of the resume, your skills or core competencies, if you have that section on your resume. You may decide to reorganize some bullets depending on the importance of a certain responsibility or a certain accomplishment in relation to that job poster. And you may want to tailor the language within your resume. Let's say one company is putting more emphasis on partnerships while another company is putting more emphasis on relationship building. Same thing, different keyword, so you may want to adjust accordingly. So those are the kinds of tweaks that you want to make. You're not starting your resume from scratch every single time because your search is targeted. You're targeted in terms of the industry, the employers, and the types of roles that you're applying for. If you like this video and now you're looking for guidance on your LinkedIn profile, here's the video you want to watch.